You're listening to Home Value Stories. I'm your host, Jamie Owen. Today we're going to be talking about the differences between a home inspection and an appraisal inspection. I hope you enjoy. Have you ever had your home appraised? Were you amazed at how quickly the appraiser went through your home? You may have thought it was going to take hours, but oftentimes it's much faster than that. We'll walk through your home and we'll take notes. We'll take some interior photos. We'll look at each room of the house generally. And we'll, of course, check out your basement if you have one. And we'll measure your home. That's pretty much it, other than asking you if there's any improvements that you've made to your property in recent years. Have you ever felt like the appraiser should have spent a little more time in the inspection process? You can be honest. It's just you and me. Well, you'll be happy to know that there's a lot more that goes into a real estate appraisal than just the inspection. The appraisal inspection is really one of the quickest parts of the appraisal process. Before the appraiser ever gets to the property, though, they're going to have already researched information on your home from data sources like the Multiple Listing Service, the county auditor, and other data sources. The goal of the appraisal inspection is to verify that the information we have on your home is accurate. And there are some specific things that we're looking for. We're looking for things that would have an impact on the market value of your home. Since condition has a major impact on market value, we're going to pay close attention to the condition of your home. Is your kitchen and are your bathrooms updated or remodeled? Or are they a little Brady Bunch-like, a little dated? We're going to note that because that'll impact market value. We're going to look for repairs that might cause a potential buyer to pay less for your home. Not every repair item is going to have an impact on market value, but some do. That would include repairs and conditions that affect the 3 S's. Now, you might be wondering, what in the world are the 3 S's? Is your home safe, sound, and sanitary? Your home's being safe and sound is pretty easy to understand. There shouldn't be any exposed live wires or damaged staircases and things of that nature. But what does it mean to have a home that is sanitary? Does that mean that your home has to be perfect for the home inspector or the appraiser, that is? No, your home doesn't have to be perfectly clean. But we want to make sure that there's nothing that would affect our health or the health of those that occupy the home. For instance, is there animal urine or feces on the floors? I know, it's disgusting, but I've seen it. What about mildew or a mold-like growth on the walls in the basement, or even worse, in the main living areas of the home? See, those could affect the sanitary condition of your home. Those would be considered unsanitary. So those are things that we would note in our report as needing to be cared for. As appraisers, when we're doing our inspection, we're also going to measure your home so that we have an accurate idea of the gross living area of your home. That is huge when it comes to value. So we want to make sure that we have it right. We are not going to rely on the county auditor, the Multiple Listing Service, or other sources when it comes to the gross living area when we're inspecting the home. Now, some inspections that I make take as little as 20 minutes. If I'm appraising a small rectangular ranch, well, it may go very quick. But if I'm appraising a large luxury home with a lot of amenities like in-ground pools and carriage houses or outbuildings, or if I'm appraising a home with an indoor arena for riding horses, it could take a lot longer. Or if it's a very large home with a lot of difficult angles to measure, well, that home inspection is going to take a lot longer. And usually with those kinds of homes, there's a lot more to consider and to note. So, of course, those property inspections are going to take a lot longer. Now, during the appraisal inspection, we're looking for things that are readily observable. That means that as we're walking through the home, they should be relatively easy to see. So if there are repairs that are not easily observable as we're walking through the home, we're not going to catch those things. So that's something to keep in mind. For FHA inspections, appraisers have a number of additional steps that we have to take. For instance, we have to make a head and shoulders view of attics and crawl spaces. We have to also ensure that one window or exterior door opens in every bedroom. FHA inspections also require appraisers to turn on the water faucets to make sure that they're operable and not leaking. We also test the water heater to make sure it's operating properly. Appraisers will also turn on the HVAC system and the central air to make sure that they turn on and off appropriately and that the furnace is blowing warm air. Now, we don't test the AC units in the wintertime, but if the exterior temperature is such that we can turn the AC on, we will do that. We'll also test the light switches to make sure that they're operable. And there's a laundry list of other additional things that we have to do that are above and beyond what we would do for a conventional inspection. If you'd like to learn more about FHA inspections and common FHA violations, please check out my article in clevelandappraisalblog.com under Common FHA Violations. I think you'll find the information helpful. And now, a word from our sponsors. Home Value Stories is sponsored by FindMyAppraiser.com. FindMyAppraiser.com is a network of trusted, knowledgeable local appraisers dedicated to delivering accurate, quality valuations for your home or business. If you're looking for an excellent appraiser in your area, go to FindMyAppraiser.com. They have the best appraisers. Home Value Stories is also sponsored by ConsumerHomeValue.com, your go-to resource for trusted consumer information about all things real estate. Are you buying, selling, moving, considering remodeling, or more? Go to ConsumerHomeValue.com for reliable answers to your real estate questions. And now, back to the story. Well, we've been talking about appraisal inspections, but what about home inspections? What are they all about? What happens in a home inspection? Well, to find out, I thought I would interview a local and well-respected home inspector in my area. His name is Tom Mountjoy. He is a state-licensed home inspector located in Wadsworth, Ohio. Over the years, I have referred numerous people to Tom for their home inspections, and he does a great job. So here's my interview with Tom. Hey, Tom, can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Hey, you sound great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer a few questions about home inspections.
It's my pleasure.
So let's go ahead and get started and see what we can do here.
All righty.
Is there anything that a homeowner needs to do in preparation for the inspection?
Yeah, there are a few helpful things that make the inspection go smoothly. These might include making sure that all your utilities are turned on, such as your gas, electric, and water. Additionally, one important thing is having access available to all attic entrances by removing clothes and stored items from closets. Typically, attic hatches are in closets. And removing items in garage, such as vehicles that might be in the way of a drop-down stairway or would prevent the inspector from setting up a ladder to get into the attic hatch. Generally speaking, though, the homeowner should ensure that the inspector has the ability to move around the home freely and safely. Homeowners should also remove and secure any valuables or fragile items. And sometimes, for example, there might be shelves full of fragile crystals that are sitting directly in front of an electrical service panel, and most inspectors won't move fragile items like that.
All right, good to know. Thank you. So, Tom, does it matter if the home buyer is with you during the inspection?
Home buyers, I do like to have with me during inspection. There are a couple different types of inspections. However, there's a pre-sale inspection that's done for a person who's maybe preparing to sell their property. In this case, the seller might want to be aware of issues that the home would require attention to prior to the real estate transaction. Again, however, most common inspections are done for a person who's made an agreement with a seller to purchase the property and is contingent upon the findings of the inspection. And in both cases, we refer to that person as the client, whoever is going to be paying for the inspection. And in the first instance, where the client might be the property homeowner, I'd consider their presence kind of optional, as they're likely familiar with the home and they're comfortable with it. They don't need a lot of explanation. In the second case, where the client's a buyer, I do prefer to have the client at the inspection, if at all possible, for the duration of the inspection, or at least near the end, so we can discuss anything that was found. This gives me the opportunity to point out things directly to the buyer or client and having a dialogue with them to clarify things that might be difficult to explain in a written report. Some inspectors do prefer to perform the inspection without the client presence, and they kind of wish to meet with them at the end to review any issues that the inspector found. I would recommend speaking with the inspector regarding their preference on client presence prior to being hired. And also, if I'm working for a buyer, I prefer the seller homeowner not be present, because we need to have freedom to discuss the property with the buyer without concerns of being overheard or interrupted by the owner. And there are occasions where exceptions are made in that case, however.
That does make a lot of sense. What kind of things do you look for during the inspection?
Wow, the list is really quite extensive. Hundreds of items, actually. So the inspection is done according to what we call a standards of practice, or an SOP. And the SOP is defined by the state and or professional organizations. The condensed answer would be an inspection is a kind of a non-invasive visual inspection of the property, its structures, systems, and their components, all the way from the roof down to its foundation. Systems would include the HVAC system, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, roof, the exterior siding, and that kind of thing. And the systems are examined for proper installation, function, and safety. The inspector really should be able to provide you with a copy of the SOP under which they're operating.
Very good. Sounds really extensive.
Yeah, they're quite extensive.
How about inspecting roofs and crawl spaces and attics? How do you handle that?
Okay, this can be a little tricky. An inspector in most SOPs is not really required to walk the roof or enter a crawl space or attic deemed unsafe by that inspector. Most inspectors will walk a roof if possible based on its height, pitch, and weather conditions. It's also valid, though, to inspect from the eaves, typically using a ladder, or from the ground using binoculars, for instance. Crawl spaces, if they're free from dangerous debris, water, they may be entered if there's adequate access. There has to be a reasonable sized opening for the inspector to enter, as long as he can do so safely. And like crawl spaces, attics can present challenges. Once again, if it's safe and an attic may be entered and traversed, the inspector typically will do so. Judgment's kind of made at the time of an inspection based on the presence of insulation, exposed wires, headroom, and that kind of thing. But if it's possible, most inspectors will enter the attic because it gives them the best view of the roof sheathing, the truss work, rafters, and that kind of thing. And typically, though, SOPs only require observation from the actual access point. But again, most inspectors will do their best to get into the attic as far as possible because that gives you the best overall view.
Makes a lot of sense. Very cool. Well, when it comes to things like electrical outlets, do you have to check every electrical outlet in the house? How does that work?
Well, again, most standards of procedures, they generally require what they call a representative number of electrical receptacles. And that means you enter a room, and if there's 10, you're really only required to access a few. However, most inspectors will try to test everyone that's accessible, but they're not going to remove or move heavy furniture or valuables to get to a receptacle, for instance.
Okay, very good. And what about windows, do you have to open every window in a house, or does the same kind of rules apply?
Same kind of rules apply. Again, we like to open up as many as we can because there are times where randomly, for instance, a double hung window, I've had multiple times where the upper sash will literally fall when you unlock the window. So we do try to get to open every window we can as much as possible. Again, sometimes heavy furniture is in the way or you just can't quite get to the window. But once again, if they're accessible, most inspectors will open as many as possible.
What happens if you find a problem or you suspect a problem with a home? What happens then?
Okay, the typical problems we'll talk about later here, but if there's a safety issue, if you go into a room, for instance, or to a home and you smell gas, something that will have immediate potential of causing harm to either the current property owner or buyer, for example, a fire hazard, inspectors will notify the parties involved immediately. Otherwise, when we find problems, a written report with the descriptions of the findings and most often multiple photos will be supplied to the client. The report's usually reviewed by the client and the realtor if one's involved in the transaction. And based on the findings, the client will make decisions from there. The inspector should also be willing to discuss the report in order to answer any outstanding questions.
Sounds good. Well, how long does a typical home inspection take?
Well, that's a good one too. Time duration of inspection, that kind of depends on the size of the house and also the condition of the property. I typically ask for a 3-hour window. If there are minimal issues and attic access isn't hindered, and the actual time required might be closer to 2.5 hours, but I would say a typical, like say less than 3,000 square foot home would probably take around 2.5 to 3 hours.
Good to know. Now, after you've done the inspection part of the process, do you have any work to do after that?
Yeah, actually, that's when most of the work actually happens. There's always paperwork to do after the inspection. Some inspectors, they do use software that gives them the capability to provide a report on site immediately following the inspection. More likely scenario is going to be the inspector is going to return back to his office and generate the report after reviewing notes and pictures. I do my best to provide the report within 24 hours of the inspection's ending time. But the client, again, this is one of the things the client should ask of the inspector and how and when the report will be submitted prior to the hiring.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share about home inspection?
Yeah, finally, one last thing that very soon Ohio inspectors are going to be required to be licensed. This wasn't previously the case. Clients should really start verifying that their inspectors are considering are licensed by the state at the very minimum. It's also important to remember that just because you hold a license, it doesn't make all inspectors equal. I would recommend that beyond being licensed, inspectors also certified through a professional organization such as ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, and or INTERNACHI, which is the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. This type of membership typically ensures ongoing continuing education and professional development in addition to the state licensure requirements. Another thing to remember is that the inspector-client relationship, it's relatively short. We talk on the phone a little bit and then there's a few hours on the inspection, but it's also a very important relationship. And I would highly recommend hiring an inspector that you believe understands you and your concerns, and check online reviews to make sure that previous clients are happy and see what they're saying. And most importantly, I think, is don't make a decision strictly based on price. There's usually a reason that this one particular inspector, that his price is like a way lower than everybody else's, and there's usually a reason for that. But yeah, I would say price should be your last consideration when choosing an inspector.
Sounds a lot like appraising in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Well, man, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to share this great information with the public. If you're in Northeast Ohio and you're looking for a great home inspector, give Tom a call. I have referred numerous people to him, and I can tell you firsthand, he does outstanding work. Tom, what's the name of your company and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the name of our company is Footer to Ridge Property Inspections. Our phone number is 330-510-4570, or they can contact us at footertoridge@gmail.com. And our website is footertoridge.com. So any of those places, they can get further information or schedule an inspection.
Well, that sounds incredible. Thanks again for taking the time, and we'll be talking soon, Tom.
Okay, great, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Tom. As you can see, there's a lot that goes into a home inspection. And while home inspections and appraisal inspections have some similarities, clearly a home inspection is much more extensive. In fact, most appraisals will indicate that our reports are not home inspections, and they're not to be relied upon as a home inspection. The home inspection and the appraisal inspection have two very different goals. So if you're purchasing a home, I highly recommend hiring a home inspector. I hope you found this information to be helpful. If you're looking for an appraiser in Northeast Ohio, give me a call. I'd love to be able to help you. And if you're not in Northeast Ohio, check out www.findmyappraiser.com to find a qualified real estate appraiser in your area. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Home Value Stories. I'm your host, Jamie Owen. I look forward to talking to you soon. In the meantime, put on a smile and have a great day. And thanks for listening.